The small town of Clearwater had its own quiet rhythm. The streets bustled with ordinary life, kids riding bicycles, mothers rushing groceries home, men fixing cars in driveways. But not everything was as peaceful as it seemed. For 12-year-old Ethan, the walk to and from Clearwater Middle School was a gauntlet of misery. Ethan was a shy boy with glasses too big for his face and a backpack that always seemed heavier than it should be. His classmates found reasons to laugh at him. His clothes weren't brand name, his sneakers were worn, and he preferred drawing superheroes to playing football. A group of older boys, led by a sneering kid named Kyle, had made him their daily target. Every afternoon, they'd wait near the alley 2 blocks from school, ready to push him, dump his books, or worse. Teachers never saw, and Ethan was too scared to tell his parents. He thought if he just kept quiet, maybe it would stop. But it never did. One chilly afternoon, Ethan tried to take a different route home. Hugging his backpack to his chest, he turned down a side street. But the bullies were quicker. Kyle stepped out with his crew, smirking. Well, look who thought he could escape, Kyle mocked, shoving Ethan against a wall. The other boys laughed, circling him. One grabbed Ethan's sketchbook and flipped through the pages, tearing one drawing. Ethan lunged, desperate, but was shoved back hard. His glasses slipped, clattering on the pavement. Pathetic, Kyle spat. What's the matter? Gonna cry again? Ethan's throat burned, but no tears came. He clenched his fists, wishing he could disappear. Then, deep, rumbling, like thunder, came the sound of motorcycles. Not one, but several. The bullies froze, looking toward the end of the street. A line of black bikes rolled in, chrome glinting in the afternoon sun. At the front was a massive Harley, and on it sat a man who looked like he was carved from leather and steel. Broad shoulders, a thick beard, and a black jacket with the unmistakable emblem, Hell's Angels. The bikes slowed, engines growling, until the leader cut his engine and swung a boot to the ground. His presence alone seemed to silence the world. What's going on here? His voice was gravel, low and commanding. The bullies exchanged nervous glances. They knew the stories. Bikers were dangerous, men not to be crossed. Kyle stammered, "And nothing, sir, just playing around." The biker's eyes narrowed as he looked at Ethan's torn sketchbook, his broken glasses, and the fear in his small face. His jaw tightened. "Didn't look like playing to me," he said, stepping closer. The alley, once the bullies' kingdom, suddenly belonged to someone else entirely. The man crouched down, lifting Ethan's glasses with surprising gentleness. He brushed off the dirt and handed them back. "Here you go, kid." Ethan muttered a shaky, "Thank you," as he slid them on, his hands trembling. The biker turned to the bullies, his shadow towering over them. "You boys think you're tough picking on someone smaller than you." His voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen real fights, real danger. Kyle tried to puff up his chest, but his voice cracked. "We weren't hurting him." The biker cut him off with a look so sharp it sliced through the lie. "Don't. I can smell lies a mile away." He stepped closer, boots thudding heavy on the pavement. "Now listen, you lay another hand on this kid, and you'll answer to me. Understand?" The boys nodded quickly, fear written on their faces. "Yes, sir," they mumbled before scrambling away, tripping over each other in their rush to disappear. Silence settled. The other bikers chuckled softly, shaking their heads. One of them muttered, "Kids these days." The leader turned back to Ethan. "What's your name, son?" Ethan." "All right, Ethan, I'm Bear." He offered a massive, gloved hand. Ethan hesitated before shaking it. It was like gripping warm stone. "You shouldn't have to walk home scared," Bear said. He looked down the street, then back at the boy. "Tell you what, how about we ride you home today? Make sure no one bothers you." Ethan's eyes widened. On the motorcycle." Bear grinned, a flash of white in his beard. "Yeah, don't worry, I've got an extra helmet." Minutes later, Ethan sat on the back of Bear's Harley, arms wrapped tight around the biker's waist as the engine thundered to life. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt safe. The bullies were nowhere to be seen, and heads turned as the line of Hell's Angels rumbled down the main street, escorting one skinny boy like he was the most important person in the world. When they reached Ethan's house, his mother rushed out, eyes wide in alarm at the sight of the bikers. But when she saw her son hop off the bike, smiling for the first time in days, her fear softened. "Ethan, are you all right?" she asked, clutching him. Bear stepped forward respectfully. "Ma'am, your boy was being hassled by some kids. We made sure he got home safe." She blinked, stunned, then whispered, "Thank you." Ethan looked up at Bear with awe. "Will I see you again?" Bear rested a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Count on it, kid. Sometimes we scare the wrong people, but we never turn our backs on the right ones." And with that, the bikes roared away, leaving Ethan standing taller than before. The next day at school, Ethan walked with his head a little higher. Word had spread fast. The whole town seemed to know about the boy escorted home by the Hells Angels. Even the bullies were quiet, shooting nervous glances his way but keeping their distance. At lunch, Ethan sat alone as usual, sketching in his notebook. But something had changed inside him. He wasn't drawing superheroes anymore. He was sketching motorcycles, a massive biker with a beard, and a child safe in his shadow. After school, Ethan stepped outside cautiously. Kyle and his gang lingered across the street but didn't approach. Then, from the corner, came the familiar growl of engines. Bear and two of his crew appeared, pulling up to the curb like guardians of old. "Hey, champ," Bear greeted. "Need a lift?" Ethan's grin spread wide. The bullies, faces drained of color as they realized this wasn't a one-time thing. The boy they once mocked now had protectors no one dared cross. For weeks, the bikers rotated, sometimes Bear, sometimes others, making sure Ethan got home safe. But more than that, they taught him little lessons along the way. Bear showed him how to tighten bolts on a bike. Another rider taught him how to throw a proper punch, not to hurt, but to stand his ground. Being tough ain't about beating people up, Bear explained one day. It's about knowing when to fight and when to walk away. It's about protecting, not hurting. Ethan absorbed every word. Slowly, confidence replaced his fear. He still loved drawing, but now his superheroes weren't men in capes, they were men on bikes with steel hearts and a code of honor. One evening, Ethan's mother pulled Bear aside. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You've given my son something I couldn't, courage." Bear smiled, his eyes crinkling. "Ma'am, we've all been where he is. Lost, scared. Someone once stood up for me when I was young. Now it's my turn. That's the code." Months later, Ethan faced Kyle again, not with fear, but with steady eyes. When Kyle tried to sneer, Ethan didn't flinch. He just said calmly, "You don't scare me anymore." And for the first time, Kyle looked away. Ethan never became a biker, but he carried their lessons forever. He grew stronger, braver, and kinder, because he knew true strength wasn't about fists, but about standing up for others. And somewhere on the open road, the Hells Angels rode on, steel thunder, leather, and loyalty, knowing they'd left a mark on one boy's life that would never fade.